Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we're going to be checking out my 1cc of Samurai Aces on hard mode. Interestingly enough, after I did the commentary for normal mode, which a bunch of you watched, I decided to boot this up, and it only took 2 attempts to bang this out, and later that evening I sat down to do very hard mode, and that one took a little longer, but I did bang that out. So I think what I will do is I will space the videos out so that it's not just 3 videos back to back of the same game, just on different difficulties. But I am excited to share them because there are differences here and there and different bits of experience to share and just talk about, and I'm really excited about that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, for this one, as you would assume, attacks can be more aggressive. Enemies in the stages, like the stage portions anyway, outside of the boss fights, sometimes they will attack, whereas normally on normal mode they wouldn't attack at all. That kind of stuff. Bosses will have additional attacks too, just things are that much more crazy to deal with earlier on in the run. Other than that, it's just been so refreshing finally buckling down for a clear, because for those who didn't hear in the other video or just before, I first got the Psikyo physicals. There are volumes 1, 2, and 3 with 4 games on each, and I jumped in, I fell in love with the games. They just felt so creative, so different from what I was used to, and this was still very early in my shmup days, so it was just a really exciting time. And while I did enjoy them, I didn't sink deep into them like I have for this, because this is my first Psikyo, well, not this run, but the normal mode that I did the other day. That was my first Psikyo 1cc. And so jumping in again has been really refreshing because I get to just appreciate how awesome this game is. The details, like I've always loved the river stage, the gorgeous color of the water, the boss design, and like even here, the boss design and just the way they transform and have all these different phases and additional attacks coming in and all this stuff, and just the mechanics in general. Interestingly enough, something I forgot to mention in the other video, I was playing Gunbird before I even got onto tackling this one, and I was talking to my buddy More Salty, and I was watching one of his runs, and I realized that you can charge up your weapon in this and Gunbird, but I especially had no clue. Since my focus was more on Gunbird at the time, I was blown away that I had gone years without knowing you could do that. And that, I feel, changes everything, especially here, because if you're not using that, you're just starting a boss fight and you're just shooting. Whereas here, you can do a solid chunk of damage, like I just did, as soon as you can start damaging the enemy, or the boss, or whatever. That just makes a huge difference. And just learning all about when and where to point blank things too. It just, these games are such a blast, even though with the current way they're set up on Switch, they're, yeah, definitely their own kind of challenge. But it's an exciting adventure and experience, because bit by bit you just get to piece things together, and it's just a lot of fun. And every time you get a clear, you're that much more equipped for jumping onto something else. In the near future, what I would like to start doing are some coffee talk sessions where I'm just sitting talking. Instead of always making the focus like, oh, show gameplay and all this stuff, it would be nice to just sit and chat with a warm beverage. And so I think I'm going to get into some of that. And I think one of the first things I would like to do is, well, I got a number of ideas, but one that I'm excited to share, and not that these would be long chats either, but I would like to talk about how sometimes people think, okay, if I beat normal mode, like how am I possibly going to beat a harder mode when the normal mode was like took me this long and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, if you have beaten normal mode, and this will, obviously there will be exceptions, but essentially, if you can beat the normal mode of a game, you have pretty much done a huge chunk of the groundwork for the other modes. And a prime example is this. Like, this took me, playing a little bit each day, this took me 10 or 11 days. Not for hard mode, the one we're watching now, but normal mode, I mean. But then, yeah, after that was banged out, boom, the same day, hard mode and very hard mode are banged out, because you just know what to do, and it never needs to be this idea that, like, oh, there's no way it's going to happen because it's going to take twice as long as the normal mode took me and blah, blah, blah. That's almost never the case in my experience. So yeah, just little things like that, just enjoyable chats, I think would be a lot of fun to do. And I'm still learning, like, yeah, doing this part again, for instance, I would just stay right in the middle of that big tank, because you can just stay in between those two shots that fire out separately at two different points, and then just move for when the trail of bullets is actually snaking its way down towards you. So just things like that filter into the awareness, and you can just really start to clean up your game. And I think after I'm done recording this commentary, I'll do the very hard commentary right away. My daughter is asleep right now, so I really want to capitalize on some, yeah, productivity. But yeah, these these games are so cool. I'm honestly so baffled, because I've mentioned this to a few people recently and in the comments of the normal mode clear, because some people wondered about the lag. And when I first got into these games, I didn't notice the lag because I was so new to shmups that I don't think I was even capable of even realizing it, because these were some of my first ones. And then when I came back to it a couple years later or whatever, it felt brutal. It felt absolutely brutal playing any of these. Like, it was just so terrible. And then coming in this time around, I don't even notice lag. I swear there's no way they patched this or did something to fix it or anything like that. Because I just don't think that has ever been anything they were ever going to do for these games. But for some reason, okay, that part was crazy. I was blown away how hectic that was, and I didn't take a hit. Oh my god. But yeah, maybe they did patch it. Who knows? But for whatever reason, I don't even notice the lag anymore in this. Same with Gunbird. Like, it's just, if it's there, I could not tell you. It's really, really strange. I'm not sure how that works. I almost got through most of that. Man, there are a lot of sections in this game that are just frantic. For the most part, there are actually a couple things I want to mention. I didn't clue into this, even though I was automatically doing it. Normally, when I first got into tackling normal mode, I would drop my bombs right on top of the bosses. But in some of these harder difficulties, I started doing it from, like, the bottom of the screen. But what I noticed was that the bomb has a slow startup and then speeds up. So if the bosses or the big enemy is at the top of the screen, guess what? It's just going to shoot past and do barely any damage. But if you're, of course, dropping it on top when it has a lot more time to just do its slow movement over top, then that's when you're really cashing in on the damage output. So that's something I want to make sure that I'm, yeah, getting my full worth out of. Because there have been a few times where it's like, okay, I'm at the bottom of the screen, I want this enemy gone, and then it just doesn't do anything. Whereas I know for a fact, okay, you would be dead right now if I had used that a little more smart, a little more wisely. I love the sound effects in this game too. But it's one of those things, like, you're sometimes doing something naturally, and then when you don't realize the potency of it until you start not doing that, and then you realize, oh my god, like, that makes a huge difference. I want to make sure I actually do it properly from here on out. Oh yeah, so since I'm aiming to do a guide, I'm wondering the best way to go about it, because if I'm just showing the stages for a single run, that doesn't necessarily help anybody who wonders like, oh, well, I have a different arrangement of how the levels play out. So like in ways I almost feel like I may need to show multiple stages or multiple boss fights or something like that, just so that people, if they're like, okay, I need to know what to do when the river boss is the stage 2 or the stage 3, to see what differences there are, as opposed to just seeing it as a stage 1 boss. In ways, the stages are actually very simple, and I could maybe even just get away with doing a guide specifically for the different boss combinations, because that might be a little more useful to people. I'm not sure, but with the feedback I've gotten and with how much people struggle with this game and how much I struggled with this game to start figuring things out, I think that might be the best approach. But if you're watching this, you can let me know. Anyway, that I think that's where I got toasted on the normal mode second loop too. The same thing, but anyway, let me know what you think in the comments as for the guide and what you thought of this video, and thank you so much for checking this out. And yeah, have an awesome one, and we will see you next time.